Beloved listeners, thank you for being here. I speak those words not as decoration, but with the quiet sincerity of someone who has lived long enough to recognize how rare it is for people to slow down and offer themselves a moment of reflection. You arrived with a mind that's been carrying more than it admits, a heart that has been negotiating with memories, expectations, and invisible weights. You may not know it yet, but the simple act of pausing, of choosing to listen, to breathe, to reflect, is already an act of courage. Sit with me for a while. There is no rush, no scoreboard, no applause waiting at the end. Just you and the gentle work of being honest with yourself. That is where healing starts. That is where letting go begins. You see, I've spent many decades watching how life unfolds, not in the stories we tell publicly, but in the private places where people wrestle with their disappointments, their attachments, their hopes that never quite matched reality. And over time, I learned something that I wish someone had told me earlier. The mind does not let go simply because you tell it to. It lets go when it finally understands the cost of holding on. So let's talk, not about theories, not about trendy advice, but about the quiet mechanics of emotional freedom. The truth we discover only after we've held on too tightly for too long. Letting go is often misunderstood. People speak about it as if it's a switch you flip, a decision you make one morning because you're finally over it. But letting go isn't a moment. It is a process of subtraction, removing illusions, removing unhealthy expectations, removing the narratives you built during moments of fear, exhaustion, or wishful thinking. Most of what burdens us isn't the past itself, but the meanings we attach to it. The mind is a storyteller, and sometimes the story outlives the reality. You may have lost something long ago, a friendship, a dream, a version of yourself, but the mind continues to orbit around it, interpreting everything through the gravity of that old memory. To let go is to rewrite the story, not to erase it, but to see it clearly, without the distortion of longing or resentment. It is the discipline of stepping back from your own emotions long enough to ask, is this still serving me? Is this helping me grow? Or is this just familiar pain that I've mistaken for meaning? The older I get, the more I realize that letting go is less about moving on and more about moving inward. It requires honesty, not bravado. It asks you to question the beliefs you've been defending out of habit, the expectations you inherited from others, and the attachments you've kept because you feared the emptiness that might follow. But emptiness is not the enemy. Emptiness is space, space for clarity, for truth, for new beginnings that cannot coexist with what you've been clinging to. Toot. I've lived long enough to see what attachment does to people. And I don't say this with judgment. I've made my own share of stubborn attachments. But I want to tell you something plainly: the tighter your grip, the less you can receive. A closed hand cannot hold anything new, and sometimes, the very thing you're holding on to becomes the reason you stop growing. We cling to people who are drifting away. We cling to plans that are no longer realistic. We cling to identities we've outgrown. We cling to the person we once were, even when life has been trying to shape us into someone wiser. Letting go is not the same as giving up. Giving up is surrendering your power. Letting go is reclaiming it. It is the recognition that you cannot build a meaningful present while negotiating with ghosts of the past. If you want emotional freedom, you must be willing to disappoint the parts of yourself that want permanence in a world that offers none. Everything changes. Everyone changes. You change, life is fluid, not fixed, and the more you resist that truth, the more you suffer. I often think of the mind as a river. When it flows, when it is allowed to move naturally, it keeps itself healthy. But when something blocks it, a fear, an unresolved conflict, an attachment, the water pools. It stagnates, and you end up drinking from a place that no longer sustains you. So many people drink from stagnant memories because they fear uncertainty. But uncertainty is not chaos. Uncertainty is where growth hides. You cannot discover new wisdom if you remain married to old pain. Letting go requires trust, not in fate, not in luck, but in your own capacity to navigate whatever comes next. You survived things you once thought would break you. You endured nights when your mind was heavier than your body. And yet, here you are. Not perfect but growing. Not unscarred but still standing. Sometimes you don't need more strength. Sometimes you need less fear of the unknown. The mind fears what it cannot predict. But prediction is an illusion. Life has never followed your plans, not completely. And still, it has taken you somewhere. Maybe not where you expected, but somewhere. The question is not whether the future is certain, it never has been. The question is whether you trust yourself enough to walk into it without dragging old emotional luggage behind you. Letting go also requires acknowledging the truth about other people. We tend to hold on to relationships, friendships, loves, connections, because we believe they owe us permanence. But people do not stay because you deserve them. They stay because their path aligns with yours for a time. And when their path changes, forcing them to fit your expectations is not love, it is attachment. Love is spacious, attachment is gripping. One nourishes, the other suffocates. There is a painful wisdom in recognizing that some people are chapters, not lifelong companions, and that does not diminish their importance. A short chapter can shape your entire story, but clinging to a chapter that has already ended keeps you from reading the pages that follow. Letting go of someone does not always mean they were unworthy or harmful. Sometimes, it simply means the version of you who needed them has grown. And growth often requires solitude, the kind of solitude that young people fear, but older hearts recognize as medicine. If someone leaves your life, it does not mean the story is over. It means their role in it has shifted, and your role is now your own to reclaim. 2. One of the biggest illusions we carry is the belief that healing is a straight line. It isn't. Healing is circular. You revisit old emotions at deeper levels. You learn a little more each time. The pain becomes familiar, less sharp, more understood. And eventually, it stops controlling you. Letting go is not forgetting. Forgetting is the mind erasing. Letting go is the mind reorganizing. The memory stays but the emotional charge dissolves. The past remains a teacher, not a tyrant. And that is the secret nobody tells you. Healing does not change your past, it changes your relationship to your past. You stop asking why it happened and start asking what it taught you. You stop seeing it as a wound and start seeing it as a doorway. And suddenly, what once felt like loss becomes a quiet kind of wisdom. Wisdom is always bought with some level of pain, but once earned, it becomes one of the few possessions life cannot take from you. Letting go also demands a deep honesty with yourself. And honesty is harder than people admit. It's easy to say I'm fine. It's easy to say, I moved on. It's easy to say, it didn't affect me. But real honesty sounds more like this. I'm still hurting, but I'm learning. I'm confused, but I'm trying to understand. I'm afraid, but I'm walking forward anyway. I'm not where I want to be, but I'm not where I was. That kind of honesty is freeing. It removes the pressure to perform resilience. You don't have to be strong to let go. You just have to be willing. And willingness grows quietly, like grass through concrete. Letting go is not heroic, it is humble. It is the act of placing truth above pride. It is the moment you stop defending a story simply because you've been telling it for too long. When the truth finally becomes more important than the comfort of old illusions, the grip loosens. The mind exhales. And you begin to feel a strange lightness, subtle at first, but unmistakable. Another thing I've learned: people often carry burdens that were never theirs to begin with. Expectations from family, judgments from peers, roles imposed by culture, guilt inherited from situations that were never within your control. These invisible weights shape your behavior, your self-image, your choices. You may spend years trying to satisfy demands that were unrealistic from the beginning. But here's the truth: it is impossible to become free while living a life designed to please others. Letting go sometimes means letting go of who others think you should be. And that is one of the rarest acts of maturity, to build your identity from the inside rather than from the applause or approval of the outside world. Approval is a fragile foundation. It shifts as quickly as people do, but inner clarity lasts. And clarity is born from solitude, from reflection, from questioning your own assumptions. Letting go is not just an emotional practice, it is a philosophical one. It forces you to ask, what kind of life do I want to live? And what must I release in order to live it? You cannot hold on to everything. Something must be chosen. Something must be sacrificed. Maturity is not adding more to your life, it is choosing what matters most and releasing the rest. 2. Letting go also teaches you about time. Time is both patient and unforgiving. It does not rush you, but it does not wait forever. Every moment you hold on to something that no longer serves you is a moment taken from what could be. Life is not short, but our attention is. Our years may be long, But our emotional energy is finite. If you spend it feeding old stories, you will starve your potential for new ones. The skill of letting go is essentially the skill of investing your emotional energy wisely, not into fantasies, not into regrets, not into people who drain you, but into what leads to growth, truth, stability, and inner peace. As someone who has spent a lifetime studying both people and markets, I've seen that bad investments, whether financial or emotional, share the same root cause: the refusal to admit when something has changed. Letting go is simply emotional rebalancing. You are reallocating your energy into something more honest, more present, more aligned with reality. There is also a form of letting go that people rarely speak about: letting go of the version of yourself you thought you had to be. You might carry an image of who you should have become by now. You might judge yourself for the mistakes you made, the time you wasted, the opportunities you missed. But you are not late. You are not behind. You are exactly where your experiences have brought you. And those experiences, especially the painful ones, are the raw materials of wisdom. The mind loves to create timelines. By this age I should be here, by that age I should be there. But life does not care about your timelines. It unfolds according to lessons, not calendars. Letting go of self-judgment is one of the most powerful emotional releases. It frees you from the imaginary race you've been running against people who are not even paying attention to you. It allows you to grow at your natural pace, without the pressure of comparison or competition. The most honest growth happens quietly, away from spectators, away from the performance of success. Letting go of your old identity opens the door for a wiser, calmer, more grounded version of yourself to emerge. Now, let's talk about the practical side of letting go, because wisdom without strategy is just poetry. And while poetry is beautiful, it doesn't always help you rebuild your life. The first practical step is awareness, recognizing what you're holding on to and why. Not every attachment is emotional. Some are habitual, some are social, some are rooted in fear. The mind needs clarity in order to release anything. You cannot let go of what you haven't first named. The second step is acceptance, not approval, not agreement, but acceptance. Accepting that the past cannot be changed. Accepting that people are who they are, not who you hoped they'd be. Accepting that certain doors closed for reasons you may not understand yet. Acceptance is difficult because it requires humility. It forces you to confront reality without trying to negotiate with it. But acceptance is also liberating. It allows you to stop resisting what already exists. The third step is detachment, not coldness, not emotional numbness, but the willingness to stop letting your happiness depend on something outside your control. Detachment is not the end of care. It is the beginning of balance. And the final step is redirection, turning your attention, your energy, your effort toward what is in your control, toward the future you can still build, toward the peace you can cultivate. Letting go is incomplete without redirection. Nature hates a vacuum. If you remove something from your mind, you must replace it with purpose, with curiosity, with new understanding. I want you to understand something deeply: emotional healing is not a gift. It is a responsibility. Nobody can do it for you. Others can support you. They can comfort you. They can guide you. But they cannot climb inside your mind and release the burdens you've been gripping. You must choose that. You must practice that. You must return to it again and again. Letting go is a lifelong discipline. Even the most experienced minds must revisit it. Even the wisest people are tempted to cling. The difference is that they recognize the temptation sooner. They intervene before the grip becomes a cage. Every day, you can practice letting go in small ways, letting go of the need to be right, of the need to control outcomes, of the need to win every argument, of the fear of looking imperfect. These small releases build emotional strength the way small exercises build physical strength. And as your strength grows, the larger burdens that once terrified you become manageable. You are not powerless. You are not broken. You are not defined by what you lost. You are defined by what you choose to carry forward. 2. Letting go also requires compassion, not just for others but for yourself. You have been doing the best you could with the tools you had, and if your tools were shaped by pain or fear or confusion, that does not make you weak. It makes you human. Show yourself the patience you extend to others. Show yourself the understanding you wish someone had offered you when you were younger. Forgive yourself for not knowing earlier what you know now. Wisdom arrives when it is ready, not when you demand it. And once wisdom arrives, letting go becomes less of a struggle and more of a natural unfolding, like winter giving way to spring. The snow melts not because it dislikes the cold, but because the season has changed. Your inner seasons are changing too. There is a calmness that comes when you finally release what has been weighing on your heart. It is not dramatic. It is not loud. It does not come with fireworks or applause. It arrives quietly like a deep breath after years of shallow ones. You begin to notice more. You begin to hear your own thoughts more clearly. You begin to feel present instead of haunted. You begin to experience moments, not through the filter of past wounds, but through the clear lens of what is actually happening. And in that clarity, life becomes softer. Not easier, not always, but softer. The mind is no longer fighting itself. The heart is no longer negotiating with the past. You become aligned, whole, steady. Letting go is the path to that steadiness, not perfection, not control, steadiness. The kind that allows you to stand firm in the chaos of life, without being shaken by every memory, every disappointment, every uncertainty. So, as we close this long reflection, I want to leave you with a simple truth, one that has taken me a lifetime to truly understand. Freedom is not achieved by adding more to your life. Freedom is achieved by releasing what has quietly been imprisoning you. Letting go is not erasure. It is not indifference. It is not forgetting. It is choosing not to carry emotional weights that no longer help you grow. You are allowed to release old expectations. You are allowed to outgrow old identities. You are allowed to redefine what matters. You are allowed to move forward without dragging every chapter behind you. Letting go is not the end of your story. It is the beginning of a new one, written with clarity, steadiness, and a mind finally free enough to heal. And if you take nothing else from these words, take this: you deserve a life not shaped by fear or regret, but by understanding and peace. And that life becomes possible the moment you loosen your grip, breathe deeply, and allow yourself to finally let go. I'm honored you spent this time with me. May your mind find its freedom. May your heart find its balance. May you walk forward lighter than you arrived.